Hello everyone. So I am going to go over how I built the YouTube banner background for my YouTube channel. So I am not a graphic designer. Obviously, anyone that is a graphic designer is probably looking at this saying, wow, that is really terrible. I have learned a few tricks to use as far as graphic design, but I can barely get by at best. Obviously, like I said, anyone that is a true graphic designer would not do what I have done here. But that being said, I can kind of walk you through what I did, and if you are in a similar situation as me and either don't want to pay to have a graphic designer, don't know a graphic designer, or just aren't really interested in waiting, perhaps you just want to get something live quickly, which is really where I was at. There are a lot of other resources where you can find good graphic designers that will help you out with all sorts of things, including banners like this. I would say from my experience working with graphic designers that you really do need to have some sort of a concept going in, or who knows what you're going to get. And generally the who knows is not a good surprise. Generally you just don't get what you're looking for. So let's back this out to 100%. So I just, oops, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just going to click here and roll with the mouse back here so you can see the full image. So this is the full image, and before I kind of get too far, I do want to show you the YouTube page here. And basically it has to do with channel art. So we'll just bring this into frame. So first off, what is channel art? Basically the channel art is what you see when you view someone's YouTube channel. It's sort of a banner that comes up at the top, and it gives you some description of what the channel is about, perhaps what they kind of do. So YouTube requires you to have channel art in order to get a customized YouTube URL. So you have to have 100 subscribers, you have to have channel art, you have to do some things. So instead of just having a channel number of like some random digits, you can actually get sort of a vanity YouTube link that you would want to share with people that's sort of customized. And I understand why they do this, because they don't want just anyone to go out there and request one of these, because there are obviously limited numbers. And if you have something like fairly general you want to talk about, like gardening blog or something like that, or gardening channel, or even specific, something specific, like the mallard duck channel. You want to make sure that you have enough subscribers so that it's warranted to actually reserve that in someone's name, because it doesn't cost any money, unlike a URL, which you're having to pay $10 or so a year to keep renewed and keep active. It doesn't cost you anything to have a YouTube channel designation, so they really want to kind of make sure that the ones that are out there are being used. So basically, you can see the URL here. Just on YouTube help, just Google this, put this into the search, edit channel art, and basically it kind of walks you through some of the things that you can do. But basically, the main thing to look at is actually this image right here, and this image shows you what their display parameters are. So for example, you can see that the minimum dimension is this, the maximum dimension is this, and this is really the suggested size, is this 2560 by 1440. And the reason that they do this is that they want to have all devices be able to use the same image. So they will probably internally take this image and crop out the pieces. So they'll say, okay, desktop Desktop is going to be this size, so let's take this centerpiece, crop that out, save this as an image. For tablets, this size, take that out. Desktop max, take that out. Or maybe since it is a min and a max, maybe they, who knows, maybe they have a couple slices in here and then use some element to, the picture element, for example, to fill in the one that fits best on the screen. Then you can see it says TV up here all the way at the top. So if you are browsing on a TV, like you have a smart TV or something like that, and you're browsing YouTube on there, this is essentially needs to be the entire size of your TV while your page is loading. So to get back to this, the first thing I did was actually import this and resize it to be the same size. So I made sure you can see my image is this 2560 by 1440. And then I overlaid their image on here so that I could have a guide to know what would be showing up. And you can see on desktop, minimum desktop, you're going to get just the edge of these two little icons right here. You get part of the microchip background, but you can see all the text is actually showing there too. Now this, the way I'm doing this is with the layers command. So I'm turning the layers on and off. So this is a layer that's set at full opacity, or 75% opacity. You can see you can bump it up, but then you can't see anything, or you can bump it down to kind of see more. So I just decided there it's good enough that I can see through it to see where everything basically is, but you would never want to export your image with that from there. So I think that the image looks a little bit blurry as far as this goes at this dimension, but when you do zoom in, it looks a little bit better. I also, one of the last things I did was actually add this blue highlighting behind there, so that's actually on a separate layer. I did that because it really didn't seem like it stood out very well without the blue highlighting, so conceivably maybe I could do a little bit better, but like I said, I'm not a graphic designer, and this is basically just what I came up with. So what I really did here is it is a composite of a number of other images. So obviously I have my text layers kind of up at the top here. Looks like this one is actually something above, so that shouldn't have been there. It should actually be lower. So I'll take the text out, and then we can kind of see it a layer at a time. Let's just turn off all the layers and kind of look at the layers one at a time. So you can see that this is one of the layers. And there's not much there. Basically, it's just some computer code. So this is basically, I just took a screenshot of one of the open source projects that I'm working on and loaded this in here as just sort of like a background. So the tool that I'm using is called the mask tool. So it's applied, you can apply it to anything, any layer. So basically just by going add mask layer or add layer mask. So let's actually look at the layer mask on this. So what you can do is you can check this box to edit the layer mask, and then also check this box to show the layer mask. And basically what you get is this kind of grayscale image here. And what this is the white areas allow the image to show through, and the darker areas do not allow it to show through. So you can actually go in with one of the tools. Let me show you my toolbox here, and I've been using like this spray paint tool. So you can use the white, for example, get a decent sized brush size, maybe pull the opacity back a little bit, and you can actually paint on some more visibility. And so you'll see that as if I go here and switch back, just want to make sure that this is in screen, to show layer mask, turn that off, you'll actually see that it's the image. So I'm still in edit layer mask. So edit layer mask is on, but it's not showing it to me. It's actually showing me the result. So if I just basically add more, you can see that I get some dark background, but I'm also getting the text that's underneath. So if I just keep doing this, you'll see that that text becomes more and more prominent the more I hover over it. So you also see the black background, and the reason is that this image has a black background. So that's basically the way masks work, is it's just choosing whether, like, how much you want to show from that image. And that's really the way that I built this entire logo image for here is by essentially adjusting masks and layering in a number of images. So the main concern, let's look at this next image here. This next image is actually a fan, and it is kind of towards the right-hand side, and it's kind of, there's not a lot to it as far as what you can really see. I could probably pull up the original image that I took, but it is, let's see if I can disable layer mask. Okay, so there you go. So I just disabled the layer mask just by right-clicking and disable layer mask. So that kind of shows you the original image. So what this was is it's actually just a fan that I took off of, I believe, a video card that I had that's been sitting around here for a while. It was black. I decided to invert it. So I just went to colors and then value invert after selecting it. And I just sort of cropped it down to be approximately the right size. I just thought it looked better as a white fan than as black, just because I didn't really want that much of it showing through. Now this is really not very much at all showing through, as you can see. You can see that this is very dark. It's got a black border on it. So if I wanted to show more, basically you can just kind of hover in here. And what you really kind of want to do is you don't want there to be like any like major transitions. Like you don't want any stark lines. You sort of want to fade to a certain degree. So you can kind of adjust the size. Like you can kind of adjust this size here along with the opacity to kind of fade in and out. And that's really kind of what you're looking for, is because you don't want it to be really apparent where the edge is of the fan. And oh, I switched my brush. So I usually just use this brush. But there's all sorts of options here as far as which brushes you can use. I usually just use this one that sort of has a little bit of a fade to it as well. But you can see that it's a little bit more prominent now than it was before. The next layer I have is just some more computer code. So I have two things of computer code. And then this one is actually an open source web page that the code is for, the Kino project. It's an open source web framework running on PHP that I've worked on now for several years. And then this is a microchip. It's actually I say it's labeled in here as chip, but it's really not just a microchip. It's actually a whole PCI Express card made by Intel that I just sort of grabbed a picture of. Now, this chip I'm sure is copyrighted right here, but the photo that I took my own photos. All of the photos that I've taken are my own photos. Really just took them with my cell phone camera. And the reason for that is you just don't want to get into any copyright concerns with using other people's images. A lot of people on YouTube are describing, hey, you should just go grab this photo or something like that. And, there's a lot of good photos out there that you can use. And you can probably get away with that, but it's really better not to, because if you don't have permission or it's not specifically open source, or even if it is open source and sometimes it requires attribution, since this photo is literally a photo I took myself, it's no requirement to do that. The next thing is, this is actually a picture of the buttons on my router. I just sort of wanted some sort of techie looking buttons, and as it turns out, the router that I had basically just a power button, a link button, and a signal button or something like that. And it just sort of seemed like that was something good to kind of put in there as well. This looks like it's part of a web page, but it's pretty faded. Can hardly read any of that. And then the last thing that I did is I actually took this picture as well, and it is I'll actually rename it. It's a Cat5 cable, just the end of one. And I actually took a picture of the whole cable, but I have it out of frame just so that I have the connector. Like I said, just sort of looking for something that looked, reasonably techy. Now this, ooh, that's interesting. That is actually really interesting. wonder what I did there. Looks like I accidentally selected the wrong layer when I was. Actually, we're gonna fix that. Looks like I selected the wrong layer while I was doing my background up here on the Canaan Hooper blue text, and it looks like I had actually clicked on the wrong layer. Whichever layer you have selected in blue is the layer that it's going to actually draw on. So I had selected the wrong one. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go find this original image and show you how I did this background. So I'm just going to delete this layer entirely and then go grab that image. Alrighty, I have the image, so I'm just going to drag and drop. Oh, that's not the right image. This is actually the fan, the original fan. So now you get a demo of that. It's got dust on it. But it just, like I said, because it was already black, it's already on a dark background, I decided that that was not the best one. So I can actually find, oh, I think it's this one. There it is. So what is this? This is bubble wrap, believe it or not, or bubble wrap packaging. So we can actually use this little thing right here to change the size of the layer because we have more image here. Wow. That's a really good thing. Skipped a step here. So, okay, so I imported it. Ooh, actually. So it's imported right here, and if I click on the toolbar, I should be able to actually move it around so you can see that there is more image. Maybe not a lot more image. Actually, maybe I don't really want to. Looks like I'll scrunch it down a little bit. I really don't want to move it too much. Let's see what that does. Yeah, for some reason it's only moving the visible part right here. And so that's an issue that you can run into sometimes, the difference between the layer size and the image. So what this is doing is it's scaling, possibly scaling a selection. So, oops, that. So if I go to image, or select all, it's only allowing me to select to the boundary here, even though it should for some reason. So maybe I can do like layer and then scale layer. I guess this is the way I need to do it. So let's say the width, let's go down to say 2800 and keep it the same. So there you go. So that's one way to do it. I'm sure there's other ways to do it. This isn't an entire tutorial on how to use every feature of GIMP. But it should get you kind of close anyway if this is something that we do. So one of the things you will notice is that this image is a white background. This is another image that I actually inverted. So basically what I did is just Control-A to select the entire layer, and then I went to Colors and then Value Invert. So you get this kind of texture underneath it, which when added to the other things really kind of becomes a good background to layer on all these other images. And when you do layer all these other images on there, it really kind of, I don't know, like I said, it's my best work as far as about the best I can do to put together a title. For YouTube. So anyway, so this is basically what I did and how I did it. I do recommend if you're going to do something like this, do take your own images, and best of luck editing. Always save your source as well, so you can see that I do have all the layers of this file. I have made a few changes. So when you save your source, you get all your layers as well. So basically, I'm going to do just save, just file save, and then you can export as well. So you can export as, right here, for example, banner source, and I can export it back out as that file, so as a JPEG.
and obviously a JPEG is what is going to be used by YouTube. They're not going to take this XCF file. This XCF file is a GIMP proprietary, probably not proprietary because GIMP is open source, but it's a GIMP specific file format. So not what YouTube wants. You export from there, export to a JPEG. I think that just about wraps it up. And next tutorial, we will go over something else.